This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The 10th session of the Summit of the Heads of the Member Countries of the African Union's Committee on Libya is starting today in Brazzaville in the presence of Prime Minister Nadia Larbaoui. And the Algerian Economic Renewal Council and the French Business Movement have held a working session in Paris to discuss the implementation of a Memorandum of Understanding. And as UNRWA today accused the Israeli army for strikes launched against a food convoy entering Gaza, the Israeli army has pursued its pounding of Gaza and targeted the central town of Dar al-Balah and Khan Yunis. And in Senegal, security forces used tear gas to disperse an opposition rally outside Senegal's parliament as lawmakers began debating a proposal to postpone the country's presidential elections. And those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The proceedings of the 10th session of the Summit of the Heads of the Member Countries of the African Union's Committee on Libya is starting today in Brazzaville, Congo. The details with Mariam Barshi.
The meeting, attended by Algeria in its capacity as committee member, aims to examining the progress achieved as part of the Libyan unification process ahead of the Inclusive National Reconciliation Conference scheduled on April 28th in Ceuta, Libya. The Prime Minister Nadia Larbaoui is attending the summit proceedings as representative of the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, who was officially invited by his Congolese counterpart, Mr. Denis Sassou Nguesso, whose country presides over the High-Level African Committee. In a statement to the press, the Congolese Prime Minister stressed following his meeting with President Tebboune that the Libyan issue was complicated and that the Algerians were the best positioned to know it, while recalling that Algeria was a central power in the region as it shares its longest border with the country. The success of the Brazzaville meeting on Libya is of great importance for Algeria, as it is taking place only a few weeks from the Inclusive National Reconciliation Conference.
And the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has extended his condolences in a message addressed to the interim President of Namibia, Nangolo Mbumba, following the death of the President of Namibia, aged 82, following a long illness. In his message, President Tebboune also extended his sincere condolences to the family of the late President and the Namibian people, assuring his deep compassion during this ordeal for not only Namibia, but also for the African continent, who lost a prominent leader and anti-colonial and anti-apartheid activist. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers devoted to monitoring the process of the digitization process and examining other issues, notably the compensation of imams and presentations on typical farms. Mariam Barshigan.
Following the interventions of the government members, the President tasked the High Commissioner of Digitization with accelerating the path of the digitization process to start the second phase of the project before submitting a report to the next cabinet meeting. The President also tasked the Minister of Agriculture with integrating the typical farms into the national production process, including large-scale farms, to fill in the vegetable deficit. The Council of Ministers also approved the Imams' compensation plan. The President seized the opportunity to hail the professionalism of the executives and workers of the Sonelgaz company for their efforts, which were reflected positively on the sector of agriculture and national production. At the end of the cabinet meeting, the Council of Ministers adopted decrees and decisions pertaining to the appointments and dismissals related to the state's higher positions.
And the President has installed the members of the National Committee for the Prevention and Fight Against Cancer. The installation goes in line with the presidential decree, in addition to another decree pertaining to the appointment of its members. In addition to the imperative of taking over cancer patients with Social Security insurance, the President tasked the Ministry of Labour, Employment and Social Security to ensure full and immediate care of cancer patients who don't benefit benefit from social insurance. Meanwhile, the president ordered the training of radiologists to early detect cancer in specialized institutes with the use of all training potentials, including military health resources, with the creation of an executive mechanism for administrative and financial management control and the fight against cancer. The Chief of Staff of the People's National Army General Said Chengri Hanna, on an official visit to Saudi Arabia, has attended the second edition of the World Defense Show 2024. During his stay, the Army General, who is accompanied by a military delegation, will visit structures of the Saudi Armed Forces and meet Saudi military officials to discuss means of strengthening bilateral cooperation. And the Algerian Economic Renewal Council and the French business movement have held a working session in Paris. The newly appointed president, Patrick Martin, said the session, the first in 2024, is an opportunity to discuss with the president of the Algerian Economic Renewal Council, Kamal Moula, the conditions of implementing a memorandum of understanding, stressing that the first resolution will be to officially engage in the Algerian-French CAF Business Council. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International and to the Middle East now. The Israeli army has pursued its pounding of Gaza and targeted the central town of Dar al-Balah and as well as Khan Yunis in the southern part of the enclave, claiming more lives. Several districts of the western part of Khan Yunis were targeted by the bombardments, which relentlessly continued to hit the border town of Rafah. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have sought refuge in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, fleeing the fighting that caused more than 27,300 deaths so far. Thousands of others have been displaced since the Israeli army launched its attacks on Gaza last October. This came as UNRWA today accused the Israeli army for the strikes launched against a food convoy while it was about to enter the northern part of Gaza, whose maritime space is under the occupying authorities' control. And meanwhile, the EU diplomacy chief, Josep Borrell, said that the suspension of the financing of UNRWA would be disproportionate and dangerous at the same time and would endanger hundreds of thousands of lives. He recalled that the agency plays a major role in providing a vital aid to the 1.1 million people in Gaza who are confronted to famine and epidemics. In the meantime, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas called on the United Nations to pull efforts to secure an end to the war on Gaza. President Abbas said he hoped more efforts will be made to secure an Israeli troop withdrawal from Gaza and an increase in the humanitarian aid, especially during very difficult weather conditions. He conveyed the message to the UN chief during a meeting he had with the UN envoy to the Middle East process, Tor Wensland. And back to Africa now, and in Senegal, security forces used tear gas to disperse an opposition rally outside Senegal's parliament as lawmakers began debating a proposal to postpone the country's presidential election, which was previously set for February 25th. At least one senior opposition figure was arrested a day after President Macky Sall announced the indefinite postponement of the presidential election scheduled for February 25th. Denouncing Sall's decision to postpone the election, the leading opposition figure described it as an unprecedented democratic regression and called on people to mobilize. And now the leaders of the UK and Ireland have headed to Belfast to meet Northern Ireland's newly revived institutions after 2 years of political crisis.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar visited the new administration at Belfast Tortman Castle. Members of the Northern Ireland Assembly appointed a power-sharing government on Saturday after a 2-year gap sparked when the main British Unionist Party walked out in February 2022. The Democratic Unionist Party boycotted the administration to protest post-Brexit trading arrangements that it said undermine Northern Ireland's place in the United Kingdom. The party was coaxed into returning last week after the UK promised to eliminate most checks on goods moving to Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK. And the power-sharing rules established as part of Northern Ireland's peace process, the administration in Belfast must include both British Unionists and Irish nationalists. The UK and the Republic of Ireland both have roles as guarantors of the peace. The new administration is led by First Minister Michelle O'Neill of Sinn Féin, the party allied with the Irish Republican Army during Northern Ireland's decades of violence known as the Troubles. The UK government has agreed to give Northern Ireland more than £3 billion, which amount to $3.8 billion, as part of an incentive to restore the government. Already the Belfast administration said it's not enough. Little Pengelly said the ministers in Belfast would be seeking to ensure the UK government provides sufficient funding in a package to fulfil its promises on public sector to pay.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, 2:41 minutes, Algiers time. And at least 112 people have so far died in forest fires which devastated the center and the south of Chile. Firefighters are tackling 40 or so active outbreaks. 1,400 firefighters and 1,300 soldiers and volunteers will tackle the tons of fires active in the center and the south of the country. The fire broke out in the touristic region of Valparaiso, where the famous seaside resort of Vina del Mar and its beaches face scorching temperatures. According to the Chilean Interior Minister Carolina Toa, the fires have devastated 43,000 hectares. Local sources stress that the region never experienced such a situation. And now the world unites on February to raise awareness on fundamental cancer issues. Between 2022 and 2024, the focus of World Cancer Day is to help close the cancer gap. This year marks the third and final year of the campaign, and the theme for this year is Together We Challenge Those in Power. This theme encompasses the global demand for leaders to prioritize and invest in cancer prevention and care and do more to achieve a just and cancer-free world. To tackle that, we will listen to a program presented by our colleague Mohammed Khatel later on, but now the headlines. The 10th session of the Summit of the Heads of the Member Countries of the African Union's Committee on Libya is starting today in Brazzaville in the presence of the Prime Minister Nadia Larbawi. And the Algerian Economic Renewal Council and the French Business Movement have held a working session in Paris to discuss the implementation of a Memorandum of Understanding. And as UNRWA today accused the Israeli army for strikes launched against a food convoy entering Gaza, the Israeli army has pursued its pounding of Gaza and targeted the central town of Dar el-Balah and Khan Yunis. And in Senegal, security forces used tear gas to disperse an opposition rally outside Senegal's parliament as lawmakers began debating a proposal to postpone the country's presidential election. And now, as said earlier, our health magazine with Mohammed Khatel.
Hello and welcome to this new edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine. Lung cancer is one of the most common cancers in the world, which accounts for a large number of patient mortality worldwide, representing 20% of total cancer mortality. It is also one of the common cancers in the male population in developing countries. It is a type of cancer that begins in the lungs and most often occurs in people who smoke, both in smokers and in people exposed to secondhand smoke, even though lung cancer can also occur in people who have never smoked. Lung cancer often doesn't cause signs and symptoms in its early stages. Lung cancer signs and symptoms typically occur when the disease is advanced stage. How does lung cancer occur? Lung cancer occurs when cells in the lungs grow in an uncontrolled way. The cancer may start to grow in the lungs or may spread to the lungs from a cancer somewhere else in the body, secondary cancer, or metastasis. Lung cancer is the 5th most common cancer in the world in general. It spreads quite quickly. This cancer is diagnosed more often in older people, and it is much more common in smokers, although non-smokers can get it too. Lung cancer is generally divided into 2 main types. Non-small cell lung cancer makes up about 85% of lung cancers. Small cell lung cancer makes up the remaining 15% of lung cancers. Small cell lung cancer usually starts in the middle part of the lungs and tends to spread more quickly than non-small cell lung cancer. What are the symptoms of lung cancer? Common symptoms of lung cancer include a persistent new cough lasts more than 3 weeks, a change in the cough you've had for a long time, breathlessness, chest or shoulder pain, a chest infection that does not go away or keep coming back, coughing or spitting up blood. Other symptoms may include fatigue, unintentional weight loss, difficulty swallowing, and hoarse voice. Having some of these symptoms does not mean that you necessarily have lung cancer. Many of these symptoms can happen because of other medical problems or smoking. However, if you notice one or more of these symptoms for more than a couple of weeks, you should see your doctor to discuss them. What causes lung cancer? Cancers are usually caused by genetic changes, mutations, in your body's cells. There are many factors that increase your risk of developing cancer, including the following. Old age, living longer, means your body cell may have undergone more mutations, which means you may be more likely to develop cancer than younger people. Smoking. Smoking damages the cells in your lungs and increases the chance of them undergoing mutations. Smoking is a major risk factor for developing lung cancer. Passive smoking, which is exposure to secondhand smoke in your environment, also increases your risk of developing lung cancer. Family history. Some genetic mutations that may cause cancer can be passed from parents to child. If you have a family history of lung cancer, you may be at a higher risk of developing lung cancer yourself. Exposure to certain elements, significant exposure to substances such as asbestos, radon, and some heavy metals may increase your risk of developing lung cancer. Lung diseases, you may have a higher chance of developing lung cancer if you already have a lung disease such as pulmonary fibrosis, pulmonary tuberculosis, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. When should I see my doctor? You should see your doctor right away if you have new symptoms that concern you, especially those listed above. This is particularly important if you have risk factors for lung cancer, such as a history of lung disease, a family history of lung cancer, or you are a smoker. How is lung cancer diagnosed? Lung cancer is diagnosed with a range of tests and scans. When you visit your doctor, they may ask you questions about your general health and medical and family history. They may also perform a physical examination. They may then refer you for blood tests and/or scans. You may have blood tests to find out your general state of health and how well your kidneys and liver are functioning. You may have scans, such as X-rays and computerized tomography scans, to look inside your body for signs of cancer. You may also have tests to determine how well your lungs are functioning. If your doctor is concerned about any finding that these tests show, they may refer you to a specialist doctor for more tests. These can include more scans, such as positron emission tomography scans, or procedures such as a bronchoscopy involves looking into your trachea and the large airways of your lungs for abnormalities. It is performed by a specialist doctor, usually as a day procedure under sedation or a light general anesthetic. This means you will be asleep during the procedure and you will not feel it. You may have a sore throat and or cough up some blood after the procedure, but most people recover quickly. During a bronchoscopy, a sample of lung cells, biopsy, can be taken to check it for signs of cancer. If your doctor does not recommend a bronchoscopy, you may need to have a surgical procedure to obtain a biopsy. Biopsies are collected and analyzed by experienced specialist technicians and doctors and are usually very accurate. If you are concerned about this procedure, you may wish to discuss this with your doctor. You may also be asked to provide a sample of sputum or have fluid drained from around your lungs to look for cancer cells. If you are diagnosed with lung cancer, your tests and scans will give your medical team important information about your cancer and help them decide the best way to treat it. This usually involves a process called staging, where the cancer is categorized based on how big it is and how far it has spread. How is lung cancer treated? Medical specialists can treat lung cancer in different ways. The type of treatment a medical team recommends for you will depend on several factors, including the type of cancer, its stage, your general health, and the goal of treatment. The most suitable treatment will also depend on whether the cancer started in your lung, primary, or spread from another part of your body, metastasis. In the case of a metastasis to the lung, the treatment is usually chosen based on the location of the primary cancer. Types of cancer treatments can include surgery to cut out the cancer. This includes a lobectomy, where one lobe of a lung is removed, a pneumonectomy, where one whole lung is removed, or a wedge section, where only part of the lung is removed. Radiotherapy, which damages cancer cells and stops them dividing or spreading. Chemotherapy, which uses strong medicines to kill cancer cells. Targeted therapy, which uses medicine that attacks specific features of a cancer, for example, certain genetic mutations. Immunotherapy, which helps your immune system see cancer cells and kill them. Your medical team may recommend one or a combination of these treatments depending on your situation. Cancer treatment may be given with the aim of removing all signs of cancer, curative. In other cases, the goal may be to relieve symptoms and maximize quality of life. Palliative care, without necessarily curing the cancer completely. The prognosis of lung cancer depends on how advanced it was at diagnosis, staging, the effectiveness of cancer treatment, and a person's general health. Your doctor can discuss realistic expectations for your own prognosis. Together, you and your medical team can create a cancer treatment plan that contains the goal of your cancer treatment and the steps that these involve. Now, can lung cancer be prevented? You can reduce your risk of developing lung cancer by avoiding known risk factors such as smoking and asbestos. Other risk factors such as age and a family history of lung cancer cannot be changed. What are the complications of lung cancer? Some people with lung cancer will develop symptoms such as shortness of breath, a cough, and or chest pain because of how the cancer affects the lungs' function. As it advances, lung cancer may cause other complications. These can include fluid buildup in the space around your lung. Lung cancer can also affect your appetite and you may lose weight. You may feel very fatigued and or have difficulty sleeping. You may also experience these symptoms and others as side effect of lung cancer treatment. Your medical team has a lot of experience in treating symptoms and complications of lung cancer and can give you advice and support to manage them. Even if you are receiving cancer treatment, there is still a chance that your cancer can spread to another part of your body. If this happens, you and your medical team may adjust your cancer treatment plan. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine. Don't forget to join us next week with a new topic and new recommendations for your well-being and the well-being of your family and friends.
Hi and welcome to our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. First in the news, the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has received in Algiers the head of the North Africa unit of the European Commission's Directorate General for Neighbourhood Policy, Florian Ermacora, with whom he reviewed ways of strengthening bilateral cooperation in the various fields of energy, according to a press release from the ministry. During the meeting, the two parties discussed bilateral relations and ways of strengthening them as part of the strategic dialogue between Algeria and the European Union in the field of energy. The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has affirmed in the southern city of Gardaya that the 7th Gas Exporting Countries Forum, slated for the end of the current month in Algeria, will be an important event to promote gas as a vital energy for energy transition. The minister underlined that the forum will promote the interests of the member states who work on the preservation of natural gas, considered a low-pollution fuel and necessary for energy transition. Regarding Algeria's place in the energy market, Mohamed Arkab said the following.
Algeria is one of the main partners to Europe in terms of providing it with energy, particularly natural gas. Algeria has always been and will always be a safe and trustworthy energy exporter, notably in the field of gas, energy and natural gas.
Algeria ranked second largest exporter of natural gas by pipeline to the European Union in 2023, with a significant increase in its exports of liquefied natural gas LNG, according to the monthly report of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum GECF. The GECF report for January shows that in 2023, Algeria supplied 90% of the natural gas exported by pipeline to the EU, ranking just behind Norway, which is in first place with a market share of 54%, while Russia came third with a share of 17%. The National Center for Research and Development in Fisheries and Aquaculture, CNRDPA, in Bousmaïl province of Tipaza, has set up an incubator which has just been awarded the label of the National Committee for Labeling Startups, Innovative Projects and Incubators, according to an official from the Ministry of Fisheries and Fisheries Productions. Called Aqua Incub and based at the CNRDPA headquarters, this first sectoral incubator is intended to provide support and guidance for startups and innovative project holders in the various fisheries and fish production sectors. In more Algerian economic news, the national energy group Sonatrach has signed a 10-year agreement with Grain LNG for the extension of long-term storage and delivery capacity for Algerian liquefied natural gas LNG at the British company's terminal starting in January 2029. According to a Sonatrach press release, the agreement covers an important capacity of 3 million tons of LNG per year. The Minister of Industry and Pharmaceutical Production, Ali Aoun, has said in the province of Sétif that the year 2024 will be marked by an industrial revival in all fields. In a statement to the press on the sidelines of his working visit to inspect several industrial units in the eastern province, the minister underlined that the pharmaceutical industry has seen a revival, and other industrial sectors, including steel, building materials and textiles, will have to support this revival. The Minister of Housing, Town Planning and the City, Mohamed Taraq Belaribi, has invited